Hey YouTube, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video, and today I'm going to talk about knives that I'm going to buy twice. In fact, some of these knives I have bought twice. Now, before I get into my stories, I'd love to hear about your stories of buying the same knife more than once. One of the times, in fact, this knife, I've literally bought the same knife, not just the same model, but the same knife. Twice, okay? Now, I'd love to hear your stories, and let me go ahead and give you a bit of an explanation for this. So what I mean by this is a knife that I've sold either because I needed the funds to finance something that I felt like was more important, usually another knife, and there are some reasons, I'll get into that in a second. Maybe sometimes I feel like I've just too many knives in the collection and I decide to narrow it down a bit. I try to keep around 40 to 50, and if I get too far above that, I back it off a little bit. And number three, sometimes I've sold a knife to get a grail, something that I really want, I'm super excited about, or that I feel like I may not ever get a chance to buy again. In that case, I'll sell a knife that's a regular production knife, knowing that, hey, you know, the regular production knife I can buy again anytime. So the Hinderer, let me pull this guy up here. This is a knife I've bought a number of times. In fact, this is my fourth Hinderer. Now, they've been slightly different variations. I've also traded, okay, but I particularly love this one, so I don't think this one will go anywhere. It was a little harder for me to get a hold of with the Wharncliffe in the 3.5 inch. But I've bought this knife multiple times, and that's because Hinderers, number one, they hold their value well. Number two, they tend to sell pretty easily. So on more than one occasion, there's been something I really needed to pick up. Maybe it's been a knife that was just going to be very limited availability, or it was sort of a grail knife for me. And so I've sold a Hinderer to finance that, and then eventually got another Hinderer back, okay? And to me, that makes perfect sense. Another example was when I traded this knife, I traded it for a custom. Well, customs are definitely harder to get than regular production knives. So in my mind, it made sense. And I still think it made sense. Now, it turned out I wasn't a big fan of the particular custom I ended up getting. And so I sold it. And shortly after I sold that knife, the person who I'd traded for decided to sell this. So I messaged him and said, hey, I'll buy my knife back from you. And it worked out pretty well. Another example is the Cold Steel Recon 1. I love this knife. I would not want to sell it, but I knew they were coming out with the CTS XHP blade. And so I sold my AUS 8 Recon 1 in order to finance the CTS XHP version. By the way, I would also maybe consider, if I decided, if there was a nice sprint run, maybe I would sell this one to get the sprint run. I don't know. I wouldn't want to not have a Recon 1 in my collection, but you can see how there would be times where it might be justified to sell. So here's a bunch of knives that I have sold that I have every intention and absolutely will at some point put back in the collection. Let's do this kind of by brand, and let's start off with Kershaw, since there's a few Kershaws that I definitely, by the way, I do have a couple of Kershaws here. These are just on screen for something to look at. These are both here for review, and I'm hoping, you know, I've had a little bit of time with both of these now. Probably I'll get a review up fairly shortly. This is, of course, the Almar. This is the M4, so the larger one, but still fairly small. And this is the Flourish. Okay, so put those aside for now, and we will get back to the list that I want to share with you of knives that I plan to rebuy at some point in the not too distant future. Okay, so Kershaw, under the Kershaw banner, the Knockout is really the only one. It's absolutely my favorite Kershaw. I love it. You know, I've sold it. I think I may have even had two along the way, but they're a great knife, and I definitely would want to have one in the collection for comparison, because they're so slim and easy to carry that there's lots of times when it's nice to have to put in, you know, a pair of workout pants or thin jeans or something like that, that you want something small and easy to carry. Let's see. Next up, I've got some ZTs. Now, there are a few zero tolerances that I definitely plan to put back in the collection. The 0300 for sure. Now the 0300 I sold didn't have the lock bar insert, and I really wanted one with the lock bar insert, so I thought I'll get rid of this one, and at some point I will get another one that has the lock bar insert in it. So that'll be one of the ZTs. The other one is the 0562. The 0562 is probably one of the best all-around ZTs out there. It's well made, it's attractive, it's versatile. You know, it could really serve as your sort of one knife option really, really well. Plus, as a YouTuber, I probably twice a week, I say to myself, you know, I need a 0562 would be a really good comparison to whatever knife I happen to be reviewing. And so I definitely plan to put one of those back in the collection. The other one that I want to mention is a little more significant probably, and this is the 0392. You know, there's a reason that Dr. Funky loves those things so much. They are extremely, extremely well done. Definitely one of the best production knives out there, and I guess maybe you'd call it semi-production, I don't know. But I am a little picky about the versions. I don't like, in fact, I dislike some of the versions that they've done, and so sometime when all the stars align, the exact one that I like will come along when I've got the money to spend on it, and I will add one back into the collection. So those are the Kershaw / zero tolerance knives that I plan to add. There's one Spyderco. Now I already have a Spyderco Paramilitary 2. I have a Spyderco Manix 2 XL. Love both of them. But I will add a Spyderco Magnitude back into the collection. I had a Magnitude. It's a great knife. I absolutely love it. But here's the thought process. This is maybe a different example, okay? The Magnitude, I had a lot of money tied up in there. I bought it the very minute it was available. And it was one of those knives that, although I really, really liked it, I felt like it was overpriced. So I thought, I've got too much money tied up in this. I'm going to sell it while the value is still high, which it was. I recovered most of my funds on that knife. And then when the price comes down, and in fact, even now, you know, you can pick them up for reasonably affordable price on the secondary market. And so sometime and then again, the not too distant future, I will add one back to the collection, okay? But I'll buy a used one for a couple $100 instead of a new one for, you know, the nearly 300 they're going for. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, this is a big one. Oh wait, before I get to that one, let's talk about the Browse T4. The Browse T4 is pretty well my favorite Browse, and one of my favorite tactical folders. It's a great knife. It's big. It's really comfortable in hand. Well put together. I mean, there's a lot to really like about the T4. And when I sold it, again, I sold it knowing that, hey, these are not that hard to come by. They're not even that expensive. So eventually I'll be able to get another one. And I definitely plan to do that. Oh, Southern Talc. Now the Southern Talc is a great knife, one I absolutely loved. It truly is a wonderful, wonderful piece. But there was a new generation of Talcs coming out that had some changes that I really, really liked. So at that time, I decided I'm going to sell my current one, and I'm going to eventually, I was never intending to do it right away, but eventually I will add one from the newer generation that had a couple of changes that I definitely preferred over the original. All right, guys, so just a couple of knives left. One that I got a lot of comments on when I sold it was the Benchmade Crooked River. People are like, you love the Crooked River. What are you doing? But the reason I sold it is because I was using those funds to go toward the bodega, which of course I adore. But I also knew that the Crooked River is not a hard knife to come by. Like any knife retailer right now that you go to has them in stock. So I wasn't worried about not being able to get another one. I knew that it would be not a big problem to lay my hands on one. And so I sold it knowing that eventually I will add another one back into the collection. And finally, this one is, I don't know if this one counts. You guys tell me if you're still watching, whether or not this one counts. I've had two Sebenza 25s, and I really like the 25, but when the Nkosi came out, I haven't bought any more 25 since then because I wanted an Nkosi. Now, since that time, they've made another change, and so I will definitely at some point pick up the Nkosi with the Insingo blade, all right? And hopefully I love it. It's a knife that as I look at it, I think is very, very appealing. And it's a kind of knife that I could see, you know, it being just a permanent fixture in the collection. And I hope that's the case. So there you go, guys. Those are all the knives that I plan to rebuy at some point, and some of the knives that I already have rebought already. So hope you enjoyed the video. We'll talk. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon.